Steam is a platform that requires no introduction, really. It's the beloved distributor for maybe 99% of PC gamers, and with a lot of the goodwill it has built through the years, the terrible attempts of its competitors to make another platform, and the massive success of the Steam Deck, it's highly unlikely that we'll see it dethroned anytime soon. But I don't think that should stop anybody from trying. Many of you will probably see the title and be quick to say, no, it doesn't. The company's very consumer friendly, so why want anything else? Well, we'll get to that, and all I'm asking is that you hear me out. Hello, and welcome to Fireplace Gaming. My name is Sai, and I like to talk about greed in gaming. But today, we're going to be going into something different, because this time we're looking at a company that isn't really known to be that. But let's discuss. When you think about it, Steam's business model is really simple. It's just a platform to distribute games and functions as the gaming library for many PC gamers for about 2 decades now. What's funny though is that back then, when it was quite new, it wasn't very popular. Far from it, in fact. Back in the early 2000s, Counter-Strike was reaching its peak in popularity. But one of the major issues that Valve experienced was updating the game. At the time, you needed to manually download the patches in order to avoid disconnections and issues with gameplay, making it a little bit cumbersome for many players, especially with the lower bandwidths for internet back in the day. So to streamline this, Valve created Steam to make it easier and improve the experience. But ironically, and in the same vein as a lot of other launchers today, players hated it. It felt unnecessary and clunky relative to just having a client for the game you want to run, and if it weren't for CS 1.6 and then later Half-Life 2 becoming so well played and reviewed, Steam would have likely died. But fast forward to today, Steam has over 185 million users as of 2024, it has a handheld gaming PC that's likely to keep boosting these numbers, and with Steam sale after Steam sale after Steam sale, it's highly unlikely that we'll see these numbers drop anytime soon. But from a business perspective, how did Steam do it? Now, there's one thing about Valve that makes it incredibly successful, is that it knows how to do something particularly well. Every season, we get something that many gamers look forward to and sometimes regret financially. Sales are a very common tactic for any store to bring in more people. You'd see 50% off signs plastered in any H&M, Zara, or whatever retail store or restaurant, and it sometimes creates a temptation to stop by and check it out. Now, Steam implements similar strategies to other retail stores when it comes to the sales, but it also has a little bit of an advantage that comes from the nature of its platform, creating a very powerful purchase loop. Some of the most common examples include representing the discounts as percentages. There's also that fear of missing out that comes from the fact that these sales are time limited, even though realistically speaking, most of the games that you see on sale this season would likely be on sale again the next season and the next season. But also, it's really hard to deny that in terms of value, the sales themselves are some of the most generous out there because it's very easy for you to get deals, especially for older games which can go up to 70, even 90% off sometimes, depending on the game. This not only makes it good for adults seeking good deals, but also for younger PC gamers who likely don't have a lot of money and are seeking more affordable options to play games. Many smaller and older titles are also not very system demanding, so it also allows more casual players, students, or even professionals to play a few games using their work or school laptop. This makes it very accessible to a wide variety of PC users, but also leads it to a second phenomenon that's really common with players. Let's play a game, and I'd love to hear what people would answer in the comments. Off the top of your head, I'd like you to say out loud how big you think your Steam library is. Alright, time's up. Now for many of you, there's likely only one correct answer. I've got no fucking clue. Which is funny, but also a jarring realization when you think about it. During these sales, unless it's like a AAA game, most people aren't buying one game. No, we tend to buy in bulk. And outside of the seasonal sales, you have the publisher sales, you have the wishlist alerts, you have midweek sales. And the thing about this is that it's so hard not to turn down a deal, especially with so much exposure to Steam's platform, because you have to play your games there. In essence, Steam has a tendency to turn regular players and consumers into hoarders. There's a funny article from PC Gamer that came out recently describing this exact phenomenon. Gaming analyst Chris Sikowski argues that Steam players are basically all collectors, willing to buy games without really the intention to play them. And that's why devs, and I quote, give Valve that 30%, because you can get access to a bunch of drunken sailors who spend money irresponsibly. Now, this is a very sweeping statement that obviously doesn't apply to all players, but I think a few of us are certainly guilty of at least one big Steam splurge that eventually reins us in. But before that happens, it's actually very hard to resist. Sure, you can probably take every single precaution, turn off the notifications, and opt out of these emails. Maybe strictly open the game via the shortcut you have on the desktop. But realistically, the regular person can't be bothered to do any of that. In fact, it's likely the opposite, that you're looking forward to the sales to buy more games, especially to catch up on releases in past years that you know will drop in price. Only for about half of these purchases being unplayed after maybe a decade sitting in your library. And with that constant stimulus that keeps hooking you in and making you dig a deeper hole of backlog games, it's already too late. You're in Steam's mercy now because every purchase makes your library larger, which makes it more convenient as a place for all your games, which in turn makes you buy more games in Steam. This is also further reinforced if you buy a Steam Deck, because now you can essentially carry this library anywhere. And with more users in your platform willing to spend, you get more devs also releasing games on Steam, which gives more players options to buy during these sales. This cycle of game acquisition is a big reason for getting entrenched in the platform, but it's definitely only one aspect of this. Epic is a prime counterexample because they've been very aggressive in making themselves into a Steam killer, with the main strategy of giving a free game to players every Thursday for many years now, and their sales can be quite generous as well. This has allowed them to grow significantly in users, but arguably, many people still find themselves going back to Steam anyways. This takes us to the second thing that Steam does best. For anybody working in tech or software, one of the most important aspects is stickiness, or essentially how ingrained your product is in the customer's day-to-day life. A very simple example is something like Spotify. You probably wouldn't realize it, but whenever you commute, work out, or do some work, you'd probably instinctively just open Spotify to play music. This goes for any app like YouTube Music or Apple Music, but regardless of which one you use frequently, it's normally really hard to transition into something else if you're already satisfied with your experience. Now let's circle back to the point on free games. In my mind, having free games is always going to attract players. Many people, including myself, were drawn to Epic, especially when it made GTA 5 free a few years back. It's since released a variety of games, many of which are good, but that's where your engagement with the platform ends. Steam's platform has many avenues that allow you to engage with features outside of just the games. You can personalize your account with game-related cosmetics. You can engage different game communities and ask questions about purchases. The workshop makes accessing mods a bit easier. You've got cosmetic markets and chat, as well as the ability to gift your games. These activities may look small and irrelevant compared to just having a free game, but the way you can think of this is like comparing a cheap burger joint and your favorite bar or pub. Sure, if you're feeling hungry and you just want to get fed, you probably opt for the burger because it's cheap and it gets the job done. But if the pub is where you and your friends go to hang out every weekend, the atmosphere is good, the service is friendly, the drinks are decent, more often than not, you'd feel a more emotional attachment to that place more than the burger joint. Valve is able to make Steam sticky because it understands these aspects, that gaming is more than just about the games themselves. It's the community, it's the ability to express your passion for it, it's the ability to ask questions, to engage others, it's celebrating your achievements. But since Epic and many other platforms do not have these features, it's very difficult for any person who is used to Steam to just switch. And essentially what happens is that these other platforms end up becoming a complement to Steam rather than a competitor. A place for you to get free or cheaper games, but not really a place for you to do anything else. So that brings us back to the question of why even need a competitor? After all, Sai, you're only proving it otherwise with what you've said. If Steam's doing all of these things well, doesn't matter if it doesn't have decent competition, why even look for anything else? Well, the short answer is yes, it matters, but it's not about actively looking for alternatives. It just boils down to one reality. Valve is a company. And although Valve is a very well run company now, it's not without its flaws, and there's definitely no guarantee it will remain pro consumer 5 to 10 years from now. And I understand that this may very well be a cynical take, especially if you're well aware about Valve's structure. You see, Valve is a very unique company, especially for the amount of revenue it generates, in that it operates with a strictly flat culture. Middle management doesn't really exist for the company, and even with Gabe Newell and the rest of the C-suite kind of steering the ship, the rest of the company operates with a lot of autonomy to be creative and to do projects that they're interested in. They've even listed out every individual description for each employee when you look at the people page in their website, which is a small but very meaningful way to highlight this culture. This is important because, according to Gabe Newell, that flat structure eliminates a lot of the internal politics that normally happens with middle management and allows them to focus on one thing: how to deliver value for customers. The fact that they're also not a publicly listed company and that employees have shares makes it very easy for the company to stay focused on delivering this customer value. This is not only an admirable way to structure a company, it's also very unique to Valve and may very well come from Gabe's approach to leading the company. But at the end of the day, leadership and approaches can change, especially with different people in charge. And many companies are examples of this. For instance, many gamers know and widely accept that the Xbox 360 was a very strong console back in the day. It was the top dog in the US, even if eventually the PS3 sort of won out globally. I was an Xbox user back in the Philippines, and I can only describe that as the peak of gaming for me, where I played Left 4 Dead 2, Modern Warfare 2, Assassin's Creed 2, Batman Arkham, and so on. But when the Xbox One got announced with its new focus on entertainment features, a more expensive price tag, but lower performance relative to the PS4, that was it. Don Matrick completely fumbled the bag, and the Xbox was never able to recover since then. Now, the Xbox side of the story is important, but it's not something I'm worried Valve will do. What I'm more concerned about is PlayStation. PlayStation was never the most pro-consumer platform, but they've generally kept from doing anything too extreme because of Xbox and Nintendo. But as Xbox started to transition away from hardware, there's a huge concern that we'll see PlayStation getting bolder, especially as AAA gaming and tariffs start to become a problem. Sports games are also a very clear example of how a lack of competition leads to subpar improvements to games year on year, which is a symptom of how AAA gaming has evolved alongside microtransactions and digital licensing. But I suppose a better example of an anti-Steam in the PC hardware space is Nvidia, where similar to Steam, they've got a competitor that's perceived to be a second-rate option, and I say that as someone who's built an all-AMD PC before I had to move to the UK. But unlike Valve, Nvidia uses their position in a very anti-consumer and anti-competitive way. But because there's no other alternative and Nvidia is a well-known name, many people are likely going to buy their GPUs either oblivious to or despite the company's approach. Valve is a rare exception for now, but there are many companies that have ruined their previously excellent reputations, the quality of their products and their services, and have become more anti-consumer by simply being alone at the top. To their credit, they were able to get there by being the best, but in many cases, once they've pushed away the competition, it gave room for complacency, or worse, abuse of the customer, creating this loop where even if the product is subpar or overpriced, because there's nothing else, people will continue to buy them. Steam is deservedly at the top because it outclasses every other platform and does so while remaining pro-consumer. But that also makes it have a significant amount of power over its users, because the security of our libraries and the continued good experience that we're having in the platform is mostly dependent on Valve's decision making to stay pro-consumer, and not because there's another potential product that can take away market share. Valve needs competitors to keep the company grounded, to help it learn and to help it stay on top. That last part sounds ironic, but really all they have to do is look at their competitors shooting themselves on the foot and run in the opposite direction. Because many people, including myself, have hundreds of games in Steam, and even if they start running ads or becoming stricter on refunds or do whatever type of anti-consumer or anti-developer practice, how prepared are we to, quote, vote with our wallets and give up years of achievements, games, cosmetics, and so forth? I say this with a lot of love for the platform after being on it for 15 years of my life now, and I really hope that in 15 years' time, it'll stay as good as it is now. So even if I'm not a fan of Epic or EA or Xbox's platforms, I hope they keep at it, because more competition equals more wins for the player. But that's it from me. Very keen to hear your thoughts in the comments below. This was a different approach for me, but do leave a like and subscribe if you like what you see. Again, this is Sai from Fireplace Gaming, and I'll catch you in the next one.